Welcome back to the Tundra, episode 11, presented by Nicolet Law. John, the Boo Birds were out at Lambeau Field last night as we record this on Tuesday, November 11th. Eagles 10, Packers 7. Packers are now 5-3-1, and wouldn't you know, back in the number 7 seed through 10 weeks in the NFL season. A lot to get to tonight. Obviously, a lot of good stuff that happened on the defensive side of the ball. But I think where we're going to start is where everyone expects us to start, and that's on the offensive side of the ball. So I'll give the floor to you, John Kuhn. Where do you want to start when we look into dissecting not only just what went wrong last night for the Green Bay Packers offense, but on a bigger picture scale, what is ailing them and how do they fix it?
Well, I think first and foremost, the biggest problem, aside from guys not being on the field, right? How many injuries is the Packers offense dealing with as we talk today? Losing Elgton Jenkins for at least the rest of the regular season, Tucker Kraft being down, receivers in and out of the lineup, offensive linemen in and out of the lineup. That's a number one, right? They haven't had a continuous flow of their starters throughout the course of the season. That's been a problem. But it's starting to prove itself that maybe this offensive line that we thought coming into the season, with the addition of Aaron Banks and Elgton Jenkins moving to center, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, whoever's going to play regular, maybe this offensive line just is not as strong as we thought they were. And I don't know how many weeks you have to play consecutively with one another to start feeling that way. But as we roll into next week in New York, they're going to have a whole new starting five for another game. So they're not getting that continuity, and it's just not going to happen. So they got to figure out a way to run block better, and now it's starting to weed in or seep in to the pass blocking, and that is a bad thing. Even at the beginning of the season when the run game struggled, Jordan Love very well protected. These last couple games, not so much. A lot of under duress for Jordan Love. So I think it all starts up front with the big guys.
There's been a lot of talk this year about these too high safety looks that the Packers are going against, and teams and defensive coordinators like Vic Fangio last night, like Avero from the Panthers, forcing the Packers to take the check down and essentially run into too high defenses to take away the explosive play. The Packers live on explosive plays in the passing game. Those aren't readily available when teams are keeping two safeties deep. So the way to get teams out of those defenses, and we've talked about this plenty on this show, is to run the ball effectively into lighter boxes so that teams then bring a safety down to protect against the run when it's going effectively. And then that's when stuff opens up over the top. The run was fine last night. I think they averaged like 3.9 yards per carry. Matt LaFleur seemed pleased with the running game last night. But overall, when we're talking big picture, the run has not been good enough. And for whatever reason, the underneath stuff that has been available hasn't matriculated the ball down the field as much as the Packers would like. And even when it does, you know, that defense is designed to eventually, hopefully, bait the Packers into making a mistake. Against the Panthers, it was the deep ball to Christian Watson that was picked off. Against the Eagles last night, Packers got into Eagles territory, but then Jordan Love fumbles. Other teams are banking on the Packers, even if they move the ball downfield, making that backbreaking mistake or faltering in the red zone. And that's happened the last two games. So that's going to be something that they need to get fixed. How about the little things, John? Last year, we talked so much about the Packers shooting themselves in the foot, not doing the little things right. I have my page of notes here, and I just noted a couple things. Bo Melton, illegal formation covering, it might have been Kennard.
Kennard.
That negated the 22-yard completion to Christian Watson. They eventually punted on that drive. Then there's Dontavian Wicks covering up Luke Musgrave on the 4th-and-1 run that was stuffed anyway at the end of the game. Couple drops. Bo Melton, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. Aaron Banks' false start to negate the first down sneak by Jordan Love. I mean, a championship caliber offense can't be doing these things.
Yeah, you can't say it any more clear as day than that. the self-inflicted, especially pre-snap penalties, they will drive you bonkers. And you got to know where to line up. You got to know your assignment. You got to know how to execute. And it's as if the Packers right now on a long drive will find themselves into enemy territory looking promising, and they'll have a 5-yard false start penalty, or they'll get a sack, or they'll have a fumbled fake handoff on a play action pass. It's all I can't blame Matt LaFleur for being discouraged and to some extent not knowing what to call, because you can't really get into a rhythm. And to me, what you need is that guy, that spark plug, that guy that takes a little play and turns it into a big play. Well, that would normally be Tucker Kraft for this offense. They don't have him. He's not coming back. So who do they lean on now? I think they got to lean on Josh Jacobs even more. Oh, how can you say that when the offensive line does not block very well in the run game? Doesn't push the line of scrimmage? You got to keep going. You got to keep trying. And that's what this Packers team is finding themselves back up against the wall. And they got to almost reboot this whole thing and kind of redesign what they want their identity to be going forward. Because I can tell you one thing, Matt, after watching these last two games, you're not going to be able to just drop back Jordan Love 30, 40 times a game either. That's not going to work. Teams are going to sit in that two-eye shell. They're going to continue to make them check it down. And at some point in time, they're going to get home. They're going to get to Jordan Love as well.
The offensive line is a problem, as you said. They've been better pass blocking than run blocking this year. But now they have some things to sort around. Obviously, with Elton Jenkins being out, I know you said he's out for at least the rest of the regular season. I don't know the long-term prognosis. The Packers did put him on IR, I think like an hour ago, so he'll miss at least 4 games. He hasn't been great at center, but a guy like Aaron Banks has left a lot to be desired at left guard. He was the marquee free agent signing this offseason, 4 years, $77 million, $27 million guaranteed. I was looking at his contract on Over the Cap today. I'm not saying, all right, the Packers need to look at when to get out of it, but you have an offensive line, which has been such a strength in Green Bay over the past couple decades. You have a fine left tackle in Rasheed Walker. You have a below average left guard. You have a center who's playing technically out of position, who was a Pro Bowler at left guard twice. You have a right guard in Jordan Morgan, whose best position is left tackle probably. And you have a stud right tackle in Zach Tom, who's battled injury this year. If your offensive line is that shaky, nothing's going to go right. Your run game, your pass game, you can't get into a rhythm or flow of anything. And it's been such a luxury for the Packers, even predating when you played for the team. The Packers need to get that shored away. And if they know it's going to be a weakness for them going forward, they have to design a different kind of offense to compensate for that. How do they do that going forward?
Well, this is where Matt LaFleur earns the big bucks and earns his next contract. Very similarly to last year when Jordan Love went down, this entire offense revolved around the run game and a version of the run game that included the quarterback. Now, I'm not saying they should do that this year, but that's what they did before. They completely rededicated themselves to having a new look offense, keeping defenses on their heels, creative run games, gap scheme, outside zone, read options, and things that really made defenses guess when they came in here. Right now, you have two mindsets. We are either going to bully you, we're going to do what we do, and we're going to do it so good you can't stop us, or we're going to have to create openings. We're going to have to create holes with a little bit of a shake here and a little bit of a motion here and a shift here. And next thing you know, here comes a jet sweep. They got to get back to running the football and doing it out of a variety of different formations, personnel groups, and skill sets. And honestly, running Josh Jacobs, run Emmanuel Wilson, run Savion Williams on one of those jet sweeps, but you got to do it in a variety so that it keeps the defense off balance, because I don't think this Packers offensive line is one that's going to line up and just push you down the field. And I say that knowing that one of the worst run defenses in all the National Football League is the next opponent.
Sean Ryan, who filled in for Elton Jenkins at center last night, said, we got to get back to being able to run the ball when the other team knows that it's coming. It's kind of what they did last year, in a sense. They need to get back to that. Speaking of knowing what's coming, before the Packers ran that 4th-and-1 inside zone run out of the shotgun, I don't know which Eagles defensive lineman it was, but one of them basically screamed out that they knew what play was coming. Inside zone this way. Well, that's what happened, and they stuffed it. Now, after the game, Jordan Love basically said that he still felt confident in the play call because they were running into a light box. Hindsight is 2020. But what did you think about the play call instead of just sneaking Jordan Love, because that worked on a 4th and short earlier in the game, and granted, on another 4th and short, Aaron Banks' false started. But running out of the shotgun, to me, what's your view on that? It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the guy who played fullback in the NFL thinks about that. And then I think that play also illustrated a couple things that are wrong with the Packers blocking right now and where maybe they lack. Jordan Morgan got blown up on that play. He's left, plenty to be desired this year, probably playing out of position. He'll probably be the starting left tackle next year, but that's a discussion for the future. And then you saw on that play how the Packers missed Tucker Kraft. He's a great blocker. Luke Musgrave got destroyed on that play by Jaylen Phillips, who then seals the edge, tackles Josh Jacobs for a loss of a couple yards, and Jacobs fumbles it trying to pitch the ball back to Jordan Love. And that didn't seal the game because the Packers got the ball back, but it was a bone crushing. Is that the right phrase to use?
Yeah.
A bone crushing play, I guess, maybe. What was your thought about that whole process now that we have the benefit of hindsight looking back on how it failed?
Well, I thought in the moment, running hurry up into a play that important in a ball game, that's always dangerous, right? There's a couple things. The defense is rushing around, so maybe you can take advantage of them there. You have momentum on your side. You just gained a bunch of yards. I think it was like 8 or something like that on the check down to Musgrave. There's several different scenarios how to play this thing. But, man, when you have a play that important, I want to be in my best play call for that game situation. And that's a short yardage situation. That's a game left. Yeah. Short yardage game situation. And honestly, you don't even need to call the timeouts. I mean, by the time Luke Musgrave, they're right in front of the Packers bench at about the 45-yard line. Just call your personnel for your best play for a short yardage play. You have a short yardage list. It's about this long. It's about 6-7 plays. Some are pass, some are runs. Call the play you feel the best against. They'll sub in. That's okay because you still have 2 timeouts left. The most important thing is you got to make sure you get the first down. Now, whether you're running out of the gun, does Josh Jacobs like running out of the gun? I think he does. I don't think he really minds all that much. So that's fine. Is your offensive line, are they more effective run blocking out of the gun? Or are they more effective run blocking under center when it kind of gives a two-way go, kind of a two-way look? If Luke Musgrave isn't your best blocking tight end, sub him out. Run Darian Kennard back in there. I just think the importance of that play was understated with the way that the Packers ran it, just like it was a normal 2-minute play, like it was a normal 2-minute drill. And a lot of times when you're running a 2-minute drill, you got keywords. And I wonder, did the Philadelphia Eagles have the keyword for the Packers when they walked up to the line of scrimmage and Jordan said, I don't know, New York Bozo. Remember when everybody thought they knew what New York Bozo meant? That's not what he said. But he could have said a key word like that, and the defense knew because potentially they ran it earlier in the game or they just had it from film study.
Here's a quote from Josh Jacobs after the game. They called out our play. We ran it like 4 times. They called it out. Whenever they know what we're doing, it'll never feel good because it changed my mind on how I'm going to run the ball if we're just being honest. It makes me kind of like guess what I'm going to do. I kind of didn't want to run right there. That's just how it played out. So not great, but where we're at right now, and we'll get in the second segment into Matt LaFleur future, Matt LaFleur job talk, since that's kind of been a big talking point today on the social media streets. But where we are right now is the Packers over their last 7 games have averaged 6.43 points per first half. Overall on this season, they're 15th in scoring offense, 12th in yards per game, 11th in red zone offense in terms of percentage of red zone trips on which they score a touchdown, and actually first in third down conversion rate in the NFL. But last night, this is a what have you done for me lately league, 4 of their first 7 drives advanced into Eagles territory. No points on any of those, just not good enough. So that's the theme of our next segment is what Matt LaFleur is giving the Packers and is what he is doing for the Green Bay Packers good enough for a franchise like this. I'll be interested to get your thoughts. Dive into that as much as we can, as I said, because it's a big talking point. Stick with us. You're listening to The Tundra. This episode of the Tundra podcast is brought to you by Nicolet Law. Since 2007, Nicolet Law has been representing injured folks in Wisconsin.
And listen, you could be driving from a tailgate or trying to brave those highways during the snow. Accidents, they still happen. And when they do, you deserve a team that knows your story and your state. At Nicolet Law, they're more than attorneys. They're your neighbors. They're our neighbors, and they fight to get you back on your feet.
So if life takes an unexpected turn, call Nicolet Law at 1-855-NICOLET or visit nicoletlaw.com. That's 1-855-NICOLET or visit nicoletlaw.com. They're proud to stand up for the Midwest, one case at a time. Welcome back to the Tundra, episode 11, presented by Nicolet Law. Before we get going again, a friendly reminder to like, comment, and subscribe on all of our social channels, YouTube, Instagram, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at the Tundra GB, if you like the content we're putting out on a weekly basis. All right, John, as I mentioned, we're going to get into some Matt LaFleur talk, his name and his job status, his future. It's been the talk of the social media streets. And look, I understand that an emotional reaction from a lot of fans on social media after every single Packers loss is fire Matt LaFleur. The reason I asked the question to LaFleur last night at the post-game press conference of does he think he's coaching for his job the rest of the season, and the reason why I wrote the story last night and this morning that he might be coaching for his job is because I think that's a fair thing to say at this point. I will get in depth into why, but I just want to preface this by saying it's impossible to delegate blame for the Packers' offensive struggles with 100% accuracy unless you know the intricacies and ins and outs and thought process behind every single play. Football is such a complex game that that's never going to happen from the position we sit in. We would need to sit down in the film room with every coach, every player, hook them all up.
You don't want to do a
pie
chart?
Test.
You don't want to do a pie chart and
No,
say where we think the blame is?
I'm not into the hot takes and the blame distribution and the blame game. I get that part of our job is to explain why certain plays happen and who's at fault. But all I'm saying is it's impossible to accurately depict who's most at fault. But you know this. You played in the league for a while. I'm not saying right now that Matt LaFleur should be fired tomorrow. I'm not. I'm not saying that he should be fired at the end of the season yet. What I'm saying is if these issues persist, and we'll get into kind of the state of the Packers as a whole, that there is a chance that Matt LaFleur, whether fair or not, in Ed Policy's eyes, is the scapegoat for the Packers' offensive struggles and maybe stagnancy as an organization. Is that too far-fetched to say?
Scapegoat for the offense? Last time I checked, he called the plays. He was the play creator, the play designer, the play orchestrator, the maestro. For the team, the way the team is competing on the field, well, he's the head coach too. He wears both those hats, and he's got the most accountability out of anybody. So, yeah, I think when a team struggles, it's fair to look at the head coach and ask, are you doing enough? Is what you're doing right? Sometimes you can be doing a whole heck of a lot, but you might not be doing it right. And I would also ask, could this just be a slump? Could this be a slump by Matt LaFleur that he can get himself out of? Hey, we've seen some rocky times at 1265, especially in Jordan Love's short time as a starter. The beginning of his career did not start off in glowing colors, right? It didn't look perfect. I can remember boo birds coming out after the third quarter of a New Orleans Saints home game when they were down 17-0. There were times, even last year, when the offense seemed to sputter from time to time. But I will say this about Matt LaFleur. He has all the win totals, and much of that gets credited to Aaron Rodgers. But I think Matt LaFleur's 2 best years of coaching came, in Jordan Love's first year as a starter, to be able to rattle off the wins at the end of the season, make it to the playoffs, shock a 2 seed in the Dallas Cowboys, and make it all the way to the fourth quarter of Santa Clara before that thing fell apart. That was his best coaching moment to me, and I thought he followed it up last year with his second best coaching moment when he lost Jordan Love at the beginning of the season and didn't lose the team and didn't lose the season, and in fact got themselves 11 wins. So it's hard pressed for me to say Matt LaFleur right now is a big part of this problem, because I've seen him get his way out of these problems in the past. I need to see more before I decide that Matt LaFleur, his play calling and his organizational structure is what's really going wrong with this team.
Right. And like I said, it's impossible from where we sit to say right now that Matt LaFleur is the biggest problem, but he is a problem, and he is the figurehead of the offense. So, like I said, whether fair or not, he's going to get a lot of the blame, and it's up to Ed Policy, maybe at some point, decide whether or not that warrants a firing. Now, a couple things can be true here. Matt LaFleur is a very above average offensive mind, in my opinion. He's an above average head coach. He's had resounding success with the Green Bay Packers, record-wise. He's had a couple nice playoff appearances. But at the same time, there might come a point where Ed Policy, the first-year team president, who chose not to extend Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst ahead of this season with 2 years left on their contracts, not for, their lack of performance, but just because that's not how the Packers do things around here historically. So what that did was that set both of them up, because Policy doesn't want either of them in contract years next year. That essentially set them up for lack of a better term, prove-it years. Now, Ed might have been leaning toward extending them, but it's my understanding that Ed was, for lack of a better term, on the fence about the futures of Goody and Matt. Now, that's not because Ed doesn't like what they did. He knows them well. He has good relationships with them. He thinks they are very good at their jobs. That's what he told us over the summer. But if the Packers kind of plateau as a franchise, either miss the playoffs, make it and lose in the first or second round, the offense kind of still sputters around for the final 8 games and whatever playoff games they participate in. I get why so many fans of other teams and people online today are reacting to my column and saying, it's crazy. You're going to fire LaFleur? Half the league would want him. I get that. And you're right, because Matt LaFleur can win you a bunch of games, make the playoffs. He's a above average offensive coach. But Ed Policy might have to ask himself, if this continues, is he the coach to get us over the hump? Brian Gutekunst said this offseason it's time to compete for championships in Green Bay. Packers have a championship-level defense. Right now, they don't have a championship-level offense. And if this relationship with Matt LaFleur and the Packers stagnates, sure, he could go somewhere else and have success, but is he the right guy to take the Packers over the top? That's a question that Ed Policy might have to ask himself. And again, there's plenty of time remaining for Matt LaFleur to fix this. This is by no means a final stamp on the Packers season. 8 games left.
There's plenty of time to fix it, and there's plenty of time to definitively make a statement the other way as well. I mean,
of course,
getting up off the mat is probably the biggest way to put all this to bed. You come out, you have a great performance against the Giants. Toyotathon starts, I believe, within the next 2 or 3 days. We all know what happens with Toyotathon hits. Jordan Love turns, he walks into a phone booth and he comes out with a cape on and he just starts throwing 4 touchdowns a game. They get crazy like that and something wild happens. Packers go on another run. And yes, Matt LaFleur, bona fide, proves himself once again of being able to get off the mat without an Elton Jenkins, without a Tucker Kraft, and with all these other things going on. So there's a lot of football left to be played. But I think there is one thing that you said that is very true. because it wasn't just, said one time long ago by Vince Lombardi. It was said just this offseason. The Green Bay Packers are about championships, competing for championships. And that was said by Brian Gutekunst just this past offseason before he made the trade for Micah Parsons. You got to believe somewhere in there when he made that trade, it was, okay, this is my part. This is my heavy lifting. This is me doing what I have to do, no matter anything that he's done in the past. This is what I'm doing right now to help get us up over that edge. And now, Matt, now it's your turn.
Matt LaFleur, when I asked him last night, and let me try and paraphrase how I phrased this question. I'm trying to remember how I phrased it. I said, look, Matt, I know you're 5-3-1. You still currently have a playoff spot. And I know you're going to say you're always coaching for your job, but you don't have a long-term extension. Given the way this season has gone, do you think you're coaching for your job now for the rest of the season? Not immediately. And he said, I'll leave that for everybody else to decide. I'll just focus on the day-to-day and try to do. And then he stopped mid-sentence and said, I feel like you're always coaching for everything in this league. That's just my mindset. It's always been that way. You can't ever exhale. You got to always be pushing. That's just my mindset, and that will be my mindset till they tell me not to coach anymore. This is by no means, like we said, Matt LaFleur should go now. Plenty of time left for him to reverse the narrative on the Packers season and his future. But if the season continues on its current trajectory, we might have some decisions to make if we're Ed policy.
Matt, I think,
go ahead.
I think this is rather interesting since you bring it up like that, and the way that he said that in the post-game press conference. He's coached through some tough times before, right? Losing players being down for injury. He coached through COVID. That had to be tough. He had to coach a Hall of Famer, and some would say that's very easy. Everybody wants to coach a Hall of Famer when they take over. It's also very intimidating, right? Then he got Jordan Love in his first year. Then he got Jordan Love in his second year, being injured in the first game of the regular season down in Brazil. So he's coached through some really turbulent times, some adverse situations. One thing he hasn't coached through is the pressure of what it's like to have to coach for your job.
Correct.
And I do wonder if that could be something that could creep up on him. And maybe it's just something that's sitting in the back of his mind from time to time.
I bet it is.
When he's creating some plays and he's creating a game plan, it's like, oh my God, the pressure to now have to create it, not just to get the guys to be successful, not just to win a football game, but to ensure that you and your family are here next year coaching the Green Bay Packers.
And for those saying he should give up play calling, I don't think that would accomplish anything. I think he's the best offensive play caller the Packers have. And I get the perspective of, in terms of game management and overall decision-making, you want him to take the head coach CEO position on game day rather than offensive play caller, but I really don't think that would fix anything. I will say Brian Gutekunst is not absolved of all blame. I don't think he's the main problem if we're doing the blame chart between him and LaFleur.
Oh, now we're going to do the pie chart? Thought you said you don't do that stuff.
I don't.
But you're going to do it for me.
I will say that, look, Matt LaFleur, it's not easy to call an offense and have success without arguably your best wide receiver in Jayden Reed for a couple months, arguably your best offensive weapon in Tucker Kraft for the rest of the season, moving parts on the offensive line. He hasn't been dealt the most favorable hand, but still has enough, I think, where he should be having far more success than he is. Brian Gutekunst, I think, has assembled a championship caliber roster. Certainly a championship caliber defense. But there are some areas where he can do better. He missed on Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks, it looks like. Jordan Morgan is 2024 first-round pick. And look, maybe that it's a coaching thing because maybe the coaches are just playing him out of position. So maybe it's not a Brian Gutekunst thing, but they're playing him at right guard, and Brian Gutekunst drafted him as a left tackle out of Arizona, and what the coaches have done with him has not been good enough. So it's probably on both the GM and the head coach there for his maybe lack of development, if you will. Obviously, early in his career, we'll see if he improves next year, assuming he plays left tackle. So my point is Brian Gutekunst does not get off scot-free here, nor do the players. I wrote in my story last night, look at Luke Musgrave. On that 3rd and 10 in the fourth quarter, Tucker Kraft gets those yards after catch for the first down 10 times out of 10. Luke Musgrave did not. Set them up with the 4th and 1 that they failed to get. Luke Musgrave blows the block on the 4th and 1 run. Tucker Kraft probably holds that block. It's a lot asking a guy who isn't the number one tight end to do number one tight end stuff. It's a lot asking a wide receiver turn cornerback turn wide receiver to do the things they were asking him to do. Maybe I'm being too generous. Maybe it's not a lot. Aaron Banks, Jordan Morgan, other offensive linemen, Dobbs, Wicks, Evan Williams, Carrington Valentine even. It's on the players too. And Matt LaFleur is never going to go up to the podium and bash his players. And I respect that about him. It doesn't do his locker room any good to do that. And his job when he goes to the podium, I just want to say one more thing, is not to appease the fans. It's to do what's best for his team. But he did say, I got to be better myself. And then there's a level of execution that needs to happen as well. And he's right.
I think you're starting to understand now when you start sprinkling the dust of culpability as who is to blame in this thing. When you have an offensive performance that's looked as bad as it has in the last 2 weeks, it's not just one guy. It's not just one play. It's a lot of guys. It's a lot of people. And it's a lot of plays that get yourself stuck in this situation. Packers team is almost historic. It is somewhat historic because it goes back to, I believe, the 60s, the last time a team lost their first 3 losses and allowed less than 40 points. That's a long time. That's what the Packers have done this year. They have lost games that the defense have given them a clear window to win. It's not just one guy.
Matt LaFleur said they're wasting championship caliber defensive performances, and he's certainly right. And like you said, John, the blame is widespread. But if these continue, you can't fire the team. So there might be only one person to fire. We're a long way from that, though. And after the break, we're going to put the Eagles game behind us. We're going to put this Matt LaFleur talk behind us. And we're going to look ahead to a team that is in a far worse state of affairs than the Green Bay Packers right now. It's the New York Giants. So stick with us. You're listening to The Tundra. Welcome back to The Tundra, episode 11. This segment is brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Hey, sports bettors. Whether you're new to the game or can knock out 16-leg parlays with the best of them, the premier sportsbook you want is smack dab in the heart of Milwaukee. It's the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Not only are there over 90 sports betting kiosks, there's all-star dining, first-class drinks, the Kuhn dog, a giant video wall, and more. It's nothing short of awesome. Potawatomi Sportsbook, bet above the rest. John, can you remind people what is on your signature dish at Pato once again?
Well, you have an all-beef hot dog, Kobe, I believe. It's got kimchi, it's got cheddar cheese, it's got fried onions, and it's got jalapenos. It'll fill you up, that's for sure.
That's for sure. At Pato right now, the Packers are currently 7-point favorites ahead of their visit to the New York Giants on Sunday, a game that Drew Brees will be calling on Fox. That'll be interesting. For those who have YouTube TV, you'll still be able to watch. Let's dive into this matchup a little bit. So the state of the New York Giants, the team that I grew up a diehard fan of, no longer a fan. I'm a neutral reporter. Disclaimer, right, John? I'm the hard-o journalist. Giants are 2-8. They just fired their head coach yesterday, as we record this on Tuesday, November 11th. Brian Daboll out. Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, their interim head coach. So you got to factor in the interim head coach bump if you're gambling responsibly on this game. The Giants stink. Just matter-of-factly, that's just what it is. So they're expected to lose this game. I'm not going to sit here and say that if the Packers offense throws up another dud, that Matt LaFleur should be left on the tarmac at whatever airport they're flying into. But you absolutely cannot, by any means, lose this game to the New York Giants on Sunday.
Do you have the stats? I'm sure you have the stats. You're going to tell us the stats of where
the Giants rank
in
John,
the NFL.
That's a dumb question. No such thing as dumb questions, but that's a dumb question. You know how I operate on this show.
Yeah. So before you do that, before you read these stats, I want people to know one thing. This is a defense that has Brian Burns at 10.5 sacks on the season. Nobody else has more than 2. And this includes Dexter Lawrence. This includes Abdul Carter. This includes Kayvon Thibodeau. They have first rounders on top of first rounders on top of first rounders, and they still stink. They are not playing well, and it's mind-boggling. And Brian Burns is playing exceptional. It's the craziest thing to see. it's almost like one of those things that just does not fit. The defense for the New York Giants just does not fit. And you know
Horrible.
what? You know what? The threat they posed on offense in the Cam Scattaboo and Jackson Dart, neither are probably going to play in this game unless Jackson Dart comes back. He could easily come back. He's just being evaluated for concussion. He could potentially come back. What's 4? What's 5? I don't know. He could maybe do it, but they don't even. They're starting wide receivers out. They're starting running backs out. They're starting quarterbacks potentially out. I don't know how you justify anything but the Packers going in there and finally rebounding.
But John, you remember the last time the Packers visited MetLife is when Tommy DeVito took them down on a 2-minute drive and negated Malik Heath's, at the time, go-ahead game-winning touchdown. Anything is possible in the NFL. I will not be surprised by anything that happens on Sunday at MetLife. That being said, Dan Dugan, who covers the Giants for us at The Athletic, does a absolutely phenomenal job. I believe he said 4 Giants, if I remember this correctly, 4 Giants have been diagnosed with a concussion this year. Each one has then missed the next game. So if Jackson Dart does indeed have a concussion and he left Sunday's game early and was replaced by Russell Wilson, their absolute collapse against the Chicago Bears, then Jackson Dart will not play. Now then, Mike Kafka has a decision to start either Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston against the Green Bay Packers. And to steal a line from John Kuhn, the Giants defense versus the Packers offense is the stoppable force versus the movable object. So
something's got to give. Something's got to give.
Is it a get-right game for the Packers offense? Is it a get-right game for the Giants defense? I don't know. But the ranks. You want the ranks, you're going to get the ranks. On offense, the New York Giants are 14th in yards per game, 14th in third down conversion rate, 29th in red zone touchdown percentage, and 24th in scoring offense. On defense, terrible. They are 14th in third down defense, but they're 29th in yards per game allowed on defense, 27th in scoring defense, and 31st in red zone defense. This has to be a get-right game for the Packers. You can't excuse another performance like the last 2 weeks, and you certainly can't excuse another slow start where the Packers have scored 0, 7, 6, 6 points respectively in their last 4 first halves.
And I think if you look, Matt, at the defensive ranks for rush defense, they're at the bottom. Somewhere last, next to last, third to last, something in that category in just about every rushing statistical category as a defense. And I can't help but think, thank God the Green Bay Packers are going to get a team that can't stop the run, seeing as they have not been able to sustain a run game throughout the course of the season so far. I can't believe we're 10 weeks in, and we know that the play action that Matt LaFleur loves to run has to derive off the run game, and they have not been able to get that thing off the ground. That, to me, is number one. That's what you got to see first and foremost. First quarter, are the Packers moving the line of scrimmage? Is Josh Jacobs picking up yards? And when I say picking up yards, I don't mean picking up 3 or 4 after breaking a tackle at the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's getting to 3 or 4 yards, then breaking the tackle, and then getting to 5, 6, 7.
A couple injury-related tidbits that we should watch for this week as the Packers kind of advance on an abbreviated week. They have a walkthrough tomorrow, so no practice viewing, and then kind of back to normal scheduling Thursday and Friday on the short week. Lucas Van Ness, Matt LaFleur, said last week that it took longer than they expected for his foot to heal. He has now missed 4 consecutive games without being placed on IR, although Matt LaFleur did say he's expected back sooner rather than later. It's not something where he has to go on IR now. Romeo Doubs left yesterday's game early with a chest injury. Matt LaFleur didn't have any updates on that after the game. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Elton Jenkins out for at least 4 games with the ankle injury. And then anybody else that I'm forgetting? No, I don't think anybody else.
What about Marshawn Lloyd? Is he still on the team? Is he still a Green Bay Packer?
I saw him the other day. Yeah, I saw him in the locker room.
There was a Marshawn Lloyd sighting? How did that go?
Yeah, recently Matt LaFleur said he's not coming back anytime soon. So they sent him out west to get his body right, whatever that means, and they got positive results. I have no idea what that means. I have kind of shifted my focus from
like
that situation.
They sent him really far west. Like
I don't know
where is
they
that?
sent
Is that
him.
California?
They sent
is
him
it
to the
Hawaii?
cabin
Did
that
they
Aaron
send
Rodgers.
him all the way to Asia? Where did they send him?
They sent him to that cabin that Aaron Rodgers stayed in Oregon or wherever it was. I know people keep asking about Lloyd. He's not coming back anytime soon, so I've kind of shifted my focus from that. Another couple guys to watch this week. Obviously, Matthew Golden, who missed last night's game with a shoulder injury. Maybe another week of rehab gets him back on the field. He still has not scored a touchdown in the NFL. He is well below the, top 100 in terms of targets. I think he was tied for 106th going into this past week. Then he missed a game. Kind of got to get him going. You stopped me there for a second. What were you going to say?
Before we move on and give our predictions, what the hell? Do you remember the first round of draft night? Do you remember him walking out on stage? That he was going to be our savior. He was our first round draft pick, first wide receiver taken in the first round since 2002. I'm surprised because he had a phenomenal training camp. I am confused as to how we have not targeted him more in the passing game when he was healthy. I thought there would have been a concerted effort to get him involved earlier and more often, and that has just not been the case. And now that he's injured, coming back from an injury, I can't imagine they're going to rush him into many reps, many targets, many more contacts.
Yeah, so those are the guys to keep an eye on going into this next week. Romeo Doubs, Lucas Van Ness, Matthew Golden. Nobody else came out of last night's game with a major injury. Obviously, Elton Jenkins, as I mentioned, but that's not something to look for this coming Sunday. Okay, you hinted at it. Score predictions. John, in my business, as a writer for The Athletic, go subscribe, we have to have like 200 to 300 words filed at the buzzer every single game. So I'm writing, a couple takeaways during the fourth quarter based on how the game's going. And I made this comment to some of my fellow beat writers in the press box last night. Every game comes down to the wire for the Packers. Like there are some games in past years where Packers are up by 3 scores. We have our takeaways written early in the fourth quarter. It's not stressful at the buzzer. You know what the result of the game is going to be. Some of these games, you can't really, you got to write like 6 different takeaways because 3 are for if they win, 3 are for if they lose. I just want a nice, easy game to make my job easier. So I'm going to manifest it in a 35-17 Packers win. Get right game for the offense.
I've been waiting for them to bounce back for some time. I said you need to go take care of business in Arizona. Well, they won. Okay, we had all kinds of turbulence, and I don't mean just with the flight. There was all kinds of crazy stuff that went down. The next week, you go out to Pittsburgh and you're losing in the fourth quarter before you absolutely steamroll them and walk away with probably one of the more emotional victories of the season. Remember that celebration in the locker room at Acrisure Stadium? It was like the Packers had just overcome Goliath or something like that. They felt good about what they had achieved there. These last 2 weeks, absolute eggs by the Packers offense. I think they get it back on track this week. I'm going to go 31. No, they're not scoring 31. Not until they do it. I'm not picking 31. I'm going to say 27. Why? That's their magic number, Matt. 27-13.
27-13, 35-17. That's a cover of the -7 line that's currently at Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm looking forward to getting out to my home city, even though it's not technically in New York City. They're in New Jersey. And seeing this rock fight of a football game, potentially, that we're about to see on Sunday between 2 struggling franchises for more reasons than just what they are putting out on the field. Quick reminder before we get out of here, follow us on all socials, on YouTube, at the Tundra GB. Like, comment, subscribe. Anyone who's still listening to this show is the best. We thank you so much, and we'll catch you next week.